push it back up. Good morning, everyone. Am I on? Good morning, everyone. Oh, I am on. Oh, good. Thank you. Welcome. So glad you were here. It's been a tough week. We all know that. We're so pleased to have Joan, who has done a lot of extra, I think, over here in the last week. Amazingly so. Joan is a former Methodist minister, and she has had about 15 years of taking leaders, church people, etc., to Palestine. And you're going to hear a lot more about that. My hope from Joan is to hear some hope. That's what I'm hoping for this morning. So, talking about the Peacemakers, I'll turn it over to Joan now, and we'll have questions kind of at the end, you think? At the end, I think, preferably. So, thank you. How about a hand for Joan right now?
Well, thank you all for being here. I signed up for this about 8 or 9 months ago. It seemed like a really good idea to have a chance to tell you, the church, about the wonderful people in Palestine and Israel that we were going to be visiting during the Plymouth church trip that was scheduled to leave 2 weeks from now. Two weeks from today, we would have been in Bethlehem in worship. And somehow, instead, we're where we are. And I didn't even know how to approach this morning. And so what I'm going to share is pretty much what I would have shared anyway. And that what I wanted to do with this morning is put a human face on a part of the population in the Middle East who are lesser known because our media doesn't cover them. And sometimes when I've been with people who are new to kind of the stories and the situation, I talk about Palestinian Christians and they say, Palestinian what? They don't even think. I mean, Palestinian equals Muslim equals terrorist equals something awful in the presentation that the media gives us. And so what I have wanted to do is present some real people who have real hopes and dreams. And actually, I want to also introduce another person who's here this morning who can help me, and I'm probably going to be looking at her for encouragement along the way, but this is Kate Tabor. Kate and I met in Bethlehem, actually, and Kate was the Presbyterian representative of the Presbyterian Church USA in Israel and Palestine for several years. And now lives here in Minneapolis, and her husband, Nathan Stock, also has worked in the Middle East and is particularly knowledgeable about Gaza. So we're going to defer any questions. He'll be here. Any questions we have about Gaza this morning will go to Nathan. Kate will help me with any other questions we have, but I just want to share a little bit first, and then we're going to see actually a 20-minute video about Father Elias Shakur. It was made by a group called Telos, which is a pro-Israel, pro-Palestine, pro-peace organization based in Washington, D.C. But I want to share a couple things about how I got into this, because I got in to this issue through Father Shakur, through being connected to his work. I was hired as a fundraiser for the schools that he founded in Israel and Palestine, or in Israel for Palestinian students. The teachers are Muslims, Christians, and Jews. The students are Muslims and Christians. And it's a top flight school right now, but his video will tell us a little bit about his life story and how he got to the point of starting those schools. Before I share his story, though, I want to update you on the farm from last week, those of you who were here. The Tent of Nations farm is located in Area C in a very vulnerable place in the West Bank, and it's been very hard for the family to get there, but it still is, it hasn't been moved in on by settlers so far. And yesterday, Daoud sent out a message that I'd just like to read to you. He said, "Dear friends of Tent of Nations," Tent of Nations is the name of the farm, "we write to you in mourning," M-O-U-R-N-I-N-G, and lament at the loss of life in Israel, Gaza, and the occupied West Bank. With so many words of explanation, sorrow, anger, and discouragement having been shared over these past days, we find it difficult to find words to offer anything new. So we simply want to let you know that the Nassars, the family, are safe. Family members are trying to maintain their presence on the farm on a daily basis, although it's difficult to get out from and back into Bethlehem, since most of the main roads are closed for Palestinians. The Nassars are deeply grateful for your messages of concern and support, and they request that we keep vigil, offering daily prayers for their protection and for all the people of the Holy Land. And then they offer a prayer that I'm not going to read because it's fairly long. And they say in the end, let us, along with Reverend Naeem Atik, assert that we will continue to stand for wisdom, justice, and truth. We will continue to believe in nonviolence, pray and work and pray, for light over darkness, truth over falsehood, love over hatred and violence. Yours in faith, hope, and love. And it's from the Friends of Tent of Nations, which is the group that I'm a part of. I also want to mention to you that 27 denominations of mainline churches and church-related organizations have come together to write to members of Congress asking for three things at this critical time. And I made a copy of the letter, and it's over there by the table if you want to pick one up on your way out today. But the three things that they're asking members of Congress to advocate for are to publicly call for ceasefire, de-escalation, and restraint by all sides, call on all parties to abide by the laws of war, including the Geneva Conventions and customary international law, and to prioritize steps to secure the immediate release of hostages and ensure international protection for civilians. So, important statement from the churches, and the United Church of Christ is a signatory on this. The Presbyterians are, I think. The United Methodists are, and many other church-related bodies. So I invite you to pick that up. So this peace dove on the wall says peace in English, Arabic, and Hebrew. This is on the wall on a retaining wall in Ibilin in the Galilee region of northern Israel, on the campus of the school founded by Father Elias Shakur. And I want to also, as I start, share this definition of peacemaking, because if there's a topic for today, it's about meeting peacemakers. But Shane Claiborne has identified a definition of peacemaking that I believe is really significant and takes us deep. It's not simple, it's not weak. Peacemaking doesn't mean passivity. It is the act of interrupting injustice without mirroring injustice, the act of disarming evil without destroying the evildoer, the act of finding a third way that's neither fight nor flight, but the careful, arduous pursuit of reconciliation and justice. It is about a revolution of love that is big enough to set both the oppressed and the oppressors free. Big vision. This is Father Shakur on the left, and you'll recognize Don in the lower right picture. I wanted to show you students. These are students, and this is a group that I took to visit with the students in 2019. We break up into small groups and just talk, and it's chaotic and it's hopeful. And the students are, 2/3 of the students are Muslims, about 1/3 of them are Christians, and they don't, if you ask them which one they are, they'll first ask you why you want to know and why does it matter. It is not a distinction that they pay attention to. This is not a religious issue. So this is Father Shakur, and he has taught me more than I'll ever be able to thank him for about what it means to be a bridge builder and a person seeking peace in a difficult situation. He was an 8-year-old child in 1948 when his village was one of 450 or more Palestinian villages that were cleared out of occupants by the creation of the Israeli state. And we're going to see a video that interviews him about his life and experience, and I'll cut it off just after 20 minutes so that we have time to do some other things. But I believe that he can tell the story of what might be still hopeful and what might be bridge building better than I can today. So thanks, Alex. Jewish Israelis commemorate the fighting around its founding in 1948 as the War of Independence. Palestinians call it the Nakba, or catastrophe, when the overwhelming majority of Palestinians were displaced. But some Palestinians, both Muslims and Christians, remained in what would become the State of Israel. Eventually, these Palestinians also became Israeli citizens, now often called Arab Israelis or Palestinian citizens of Israel. Today, about 1 in 5 Israeli citizens are Palestinian. This is one of their stories.
I want to live side by side with my Jewish brothers, whether in one state, and if some do not accept that because they are too mighty, militarily speaking, then in 2 states, but I want to live because Palestine is also my home, my homeland. What do I need to come to America?
State of Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu.
I want to share the trouble which I have taken. I'm afraid if I ask for money, it will be a kind of conscious tranquilizer.
I was born in a small village in Upper Galilee called Kafar Bar'am. It's a very peaceful village. We're around 2,000 inhabitants. All of them were Christians. The big majority was Maronite Christians, not Mennonite, but Maronites. Well, I was 8 years old when suddenly something happened in our village. It was 1948. My father, of good memory, told us children we might see Jewish soldiers coming to our village. They had machine guns, but be not afraid, they do not kill. Father said, these are survivals of a certain satanic plan aiming at destroying all the Jews in the world. and started in Europe, in Germany. We will welcome them as our blood brothers. And 3 days later, the unexpected happened. The soldiers started coming to our village. They had machine guns. They did not kill anybody. They did not oppress anybody. They did not hurt anybody. On the contrary, they accepted our food and they accepted our beds. And we lived on the roof of the house for 10 days. After that, the officer of the army, whose name I remember was Manu, Mr. Manu, was a frightening person, ordered all heads of families of Bar'am to come and see him the next morning. My father was with them, surely. They went to see the army, and the officer said, "You have to leave immediately home. Go take wife and children and leave for 2 weeks, and that's for security reasons." What can simple peasant say in front of such orders except obeying? Father and others went home, took what they could from their clothes and things like that, and we left the village. I remember when I left, I was 8 years old. I could not carry so many things. I carried a blanket on my shoulder, the only thing I could carry. And we went about 2 kilometers away from the village to our lands. I know where our land is still. There was a small spring water. And we spent 2 weeks, as the officer says. Within 2 weeks you will be able to return. And he gave us a written promise in the name of the Israeli army. You will come back in 2 weeks. For us children, it was exciting to live under trees, to eat figs, grapes, cactus fruits. After 1 week, it became so boring. We started nagging our parents. We want to go home, we want to go home. You have their promise, they will allow us to go home. So all the heads of families gathered together and went down the hill where we were to the village to meet with the officer of the army. And we were waiting and waiting and waiting. They never came back. We did not know what happened to them. Did they escape to the nearby Lebanon? Were they imprisoned? Were they killed? How come that our parents disappeared? We had no answer whatsoever. We did not stay under the trees. We went to a nearby village where there were still inhabitants, and we found a room about 60 square meters, and we were 11 persons. We lived in that one room. And what I remember from that, every evening, mother would gather us all the children, and she would pray. She would pray for the government so that God changes their stone heart into heart of flesh, to have some commiseration, some mercy. She would pray for her children, and mainly she would pray for the return of her husband, wherever he might be. And that continued for 3 months. One evening, while we were praying, someone pushed the door of that room. Our door could not be locked because it was so primitive, so simple. It was Father. We were so amazed. Father is there. We ran and grabbed him. Father, now you stay, don't go. And he kept saying, I'm coming to stay. And he told us what happened to them. When they left us down to the village, the army prepared big military trucks, and they loaded them like cattle, like animals, on the trucks, and drove them so far away to the neighborhood of a city called Nablus. It was something unknown for us, so far away. And there in front of the new designed borders, the army said, look here, this land does no more belong to you. You have to leave. You cross the borders and go wherever you want. If you try to come back, we'll kill you before you trespass the borders. This land does no more belong to you. Who are you, man, to decide that this land does not belong to its owner? But that's what the rule was. Might is right. So father knew very well the way back home from Beirut to Bar'am, which is on the Lebanese borders. He took some of his friends and they infiltrated back through the borders to find us in Bar'am. That's how the family was joined back together. It's amazing. Despite all the odds, the suffering, and the disappointment that my father went through, he never allowed himself to hate. He never allowed himself to think about taking revenge or about violence. He instructed us children, do not believe in violence. If you believe in violence, you will fall victim of violence. But he did not stay quiet. He gathered all the men who remained there from Bar'am, convinced them to gather some money and to go to the Supreme Court of Justice of Israel, filing the first case against Israel. And the first resolution was in our favor. These are peaceful people. They have the right to return. But the army opposed. We could not implement that. They went back in 1950 to that High Court of Justice. Second resolution in their favor. These are people who have the right to return home. The army still opposed. They went in 1951 back again. They were very stubborn. They wanted to return home, and I understand why. If you visit Bar'am, you understand how dear is it for its own people. The third resolution was in our favor. So, although the army still opposed, we decided to return no matter what. We gathered our small belonging that was nothing important, and we marched from the village Jesh to Bar'am, 5 kilometers distance. We were walking and we were about to enter the village, 500 meters away from the first house. Something happened. We saw airplanes coming we did not know where from, and starting shelling our homes, raining bombs, explosive dynamites in our home and our church as well. We stood there and we cried. Men were crying, women were crying, children were crying, out of fear and out of disgust to see their homes blown into the air. But there is no one to listen, no heart to be moved. We became the refugees. When I go there today, and I often go there, I stand on the ruins of my father's house and always wonder, why did they destroy the village? Much later on, when I was the Archbishop in Haifa, the president of the State of Israel decided to come and visit me at home, to wish us happy Christmas for all the Christians, but to their bishop. I told him, we welcome you very warmly with much affection, and I welcome you in my quality of a refugee deportee from Bar'am. I allow myself to remind you that the village was destroyed, but the people are still alive, and they want to return home. When was that? It was long ago. You were 8 years old. It's long, long ago. Didn't you still forget that Bar'am is your home village? I looked at him and said, Mr. Perez, You were deported from Palestine 2,000 years ago, not by a Palestinian leader, but by a Roman leader. And you still remember that Palestine is your home. You came back to take part of your home, you took all of it, and you turned our life into misery. Tell me, when are you going to forget that Palestine is your home? I was not meant to be a priest, and not less to be an archbishop. I remember I learned the Bible on the lap of my mother. Between other things, she used to say to me, do not believe that our compatriot, that means Jesus Christ, our compatriot came here just to teach us nice things. He came here to teach us how to live a new way. It's there that I learned that love is much more powerful than hatred, that violence can breed violence only. So the bishop had to opt between Rome and Paris. So I spent 6 years in Paris, studying in the Sorbonne and the Institut Catholique. They taught us so many things. You can't imagine how much. We studied everything that has to do with theology, with church affairs. And after 6 years, I was ready for priesthood. Now I can tell you something. From all that I learned in Paris, I forgot everything. Only one thing I cannot forget. God does not kill. Whoever kills, he is persecuting God himself, and he will be accountable in front of God. God does not kill. All the rest is not important for me. And I came back. 2 weeks later, I was ordained priest in Nazareth. One week after my ordination, the bishop called me. Elias, you need to have a parish now, a community. I said, yes, possible. He said, I decided to send you for 1 month to a village called Ibelin. Go there, and after 1 month, we'll decide your final assignment. And ending by founding where Ibelin was. I was shocked. No electricity, no telephone, no water. They received water twice a week. I did not mind. I minded to find where the church is and where my residence is. I was so exhausted, I feel that till now. I wanted to sleep. So I decided to sleep in my Volkswagen. My bishop forgot me here. And I waited 38 years to see the end of that month come.
You're still here.
I'm still here after 55 years. And it's God's guidance that helped me to realize that my parish is not this very small village. My parish should be the world, all the world. I decided through that month to visit all the families of the village. And I decided to visit first of all the Muslim families. To tell them, here I am, I'm your priest. I'm to serve you. I'm happy to know you. You don't know how positive was the answer of the Muslims. In 1978, I noticed that our children here go to study in Haifa, in Nazareth, elsewhere, They travel 1 or 2 hours every day to go to school and to come back. I was praying to be able to open a school. Here, this place that was meant to become a Jewish colony, to separate Abilene from Shafar Amr. That's why they refused adamantly to give me a building permit. I said, what do I need? Do I need a building permit or I need a building? So I started building without building permit. The police came 3 months later. We were always coming up with the columns. Asked me, where is your building permit? I said, I don't have the building permit. He said, how can you build without building permit? I said, sir, I never built with building permits. I always built with sand, cement, steel, stones. He was shocked. He said, you don't do that in a civilized country. I said, I wish you were civilized enough. You would have given me a building permit. If I build without building permit, it's only in order to teach you to become more civilized. I was 37 times in court, always for building permits, till I became Archbishop. And 1981, the beginning of September, we opened the school with 80 children, boys and girls, 4 teachers, 1 lady, and 3 gentlemen. We did not have electricity. We drew a cable from the nearest neighbor, about 100 meters far away, to have projections when we need electricity. Water we got from the village, from the authority in the village, and nobody was able legally to cut the water away because there were people living here, children.
This is a Christian school? Does that mean that all the students are Christian?
When I opened the school, I declared to everybody, this school is not a religious school. It's not a commercial school, and it's not a political school. This school is meant for everybody who was born baby. Everybody. Now in the school, we have 3,000 students. 65% of my children are Muslim boys and girls. I adore them, I love them. You can't imagine how nice they are, how generous they are, how loving each other they are.
Okay, you can cut it, Alex, thank you. There's another 6 or 8 minutes of video, and this video is available online. I'm not sure how to give you the link, but email me and I'll email it to you. It's a good one. So that's the school. I've spent months, if not more than a year of my life on that campus and working to support those students and in the goals that he laid out in the video so nicely. Just want to show you a couple of the other people we would have met on our trip who would have been really significant friends. This is Zugby on the left. this is where, when you hear about stone throwing and tear gas and objections going on in Bethlehem, it's right here in front of Weam. And this was a group I took there in 2015. There was a message to the Pope written on the door of the guard, the gate to the guard tower, because the Pope had stopped there just months earlier and prayed at the wall at this location. This is on top of the roof of their building. You can see that the separation barrier wall is right next to the building. In the far distance is the settlement of Gilo, and just to the left is the Ida refugee camp. So almost everything about the occupation can be seen from this picture. This is Mira and Usama, Usama and his wife, their 3 children. Laith, you can tell that the ages don't match up with those pictures. It was the best picture I could find of the 3 kids, but this is from years ago, but those are their ages now. Zubi Zubi is the director and founder of WIAM. This is him with 2 of his children and his wife. One interesting thing about him and his wife is she's American. They met in Indiana at Notre Dame when he was a student in the Peace Studies program there. And they've been married 32 years. She has never had a permit to live in Bethlehem. The only way she's able to live with her family is to go in on a tourist visa for 3 months at a time. She's stuck in Indiana right now, not able to get back home. So I do want to show you one more video of a couple more peacemakers. This is Rami El-Hanan. The other person that you'll see in just a moment is Bassem Aramin. They are the 2 characters that are featured in the novel A Paragon by Colum McCann. And I highly recommend that if you're looking for something to read. But they represent the parent circle. They are both parents of daughters who were killed through the violence of the occupation. And their story is also important. Oops. We have sound?
This operation, speaking together on the telephone, became a kind of once every month, 2-3 times every month, would pray together. And more than once, a 3rd person would interrupt our prayers,
We still got
saying,
Father Shakur
now
going,
it's to
I'm
me to
afraid.
pray, you stop both of you. It was the Secretary of State himself. We became prayer partners. Soon after 2 months,
On the 16th of January 2007, an Israeli border police shot and killed my 10-year-old daughter Abir in front of her school in Anata, where I live. She was with her sister and 2 other friends, 9:30 in the morning. In her head, in the back, from a distance of 15 to 20 meters, by a rubber bullet. Abir wasn't a fighter. She was just a child. She don't know anything about the conflict, and she is not part of this conflict. Unfortunately, she lost her life because she's a Palestinian.
I'm an Israeli who lost his daughter to a suicide bombing on the 4th of September 1997. And I'm a product of an education system. These are 2 societies at war. And they socialize the young generation to make them being able to sacrifice themselves when time comes. And this is true to Palestinian society, and this is also true to Israeli society.
Because we are human beings, sometimes you think, if I kill the killer or anyone from the other side, from the Israelis, or maybe 10, this will give me back my daughter. No. I'll cause another pain and another victim to the others. I decide to break this circle of violence and blood and revenge by stop killing and revenge and support revenge by myself.
My definition of sides have changed dramatically. Today, on my side are all those who want peace and are willing to pay the price of peace, and the other side are those who do not want peace and are not willing to pay the price of peace.
Many people told me that it's not your right to forgive in her name. And the answer, it's also not my right to revenge in her name. I hope she's satisfied. I hope she rests in peace.
Can you stop the video? This is a Banksy graffiti on the wall in Bethlehem. It's a piece done in a flak jacket. Maybe a good symbol of where we're at right now. I just wanted to give you some resources that can guide you to analysis of the war and good commentary that's being written about it, part 1. Part 2 is responses of churches and church organizations. And so I made a QR code that will get you to this page on the Palestine Portal website. And it's on the right side, Jane has it right there. It says Palestine Portal. And if you want to go to that, otherwise go to palestineportal.org and you should be able to get there too. These are excellent resources. Let me just introduce things. We've run out of time, but Nathan Stock is our resident Gaza expert. He works for the Carter Center and spent years in Gaza, and we should hear from him. And Kate, as I said, spent years in Israel and Palestine as the Presbyterian coordinator for their ministries there for the Presbyterian Church USA. We only have just a minute left. I don't know if there's time for questions. Do you want to say something? Please.
Or are there particular questions we can answer, or are we about out of time?
We're 3 minutes from time.
Well, I mean, I would just say, first of all, that the whole situation is tragic. There's been horrible loss of life on both sides already, including civilian lives, Israeli civilians, in numbers we haven't seen in decades. And this Hamas attack, now a growing number of Palestinian civilians dead. What's perhaps most frustrating to me is that an outcome like this is not that surprising to those of us who are paying attention. The status of the Gaza Strip has been unresolved, at least since 1967. Palestinians living there have effectively been locked in since 1992. Most people have not been able to leave the territory for years and years and years. And it was an inevitable source of resentment on the part of those Palestinians and a trigger for violence all the time. And here we are. And I'm deeply concerned that the impending Israeli military offensive is just going to make it worse. Besides the thousands and thousands of people that are going to die in the next few weeks, it's just very hard to see how Israel or the United States, or Hamas for that matter, how any of them are pursuing an approach that gets them out of this. There's just nothing to suggest at this time that a year from now, presumably when the dust settles on this, that anyone will be in a better position, certainly not Palestinians in Gaza or the West Bank. So it's deeply disturbing and sad, and I hope that our government, the Biden administration, has the foresight but also the courage to push the parties, in particular Israel, to address the long festering issues, to do something meaningfully to push the conflict toward a resolution. Israeli governments for years wanted to kick the can down the road, and here we are. And I do think that our government could do more, and I hope we do.
I find myself sighing a lot these days, and so I just invite you to be in prayer for all of the people, all of the civilians caught in the way of very difficult circumstances, not only in Gaza but also in the West Bank, where settlers are rampaging without any consequences right now. So your prayers and your interest are deeply appreciated, and keep them up.
How about a round of applause for we need to let you move on to the 11 o'clock if that's where you're going. Next week, Greg Linnell, who is a volunteer in the archives of Plymouth, is going to give us the history of our beautiful stained glass windows here in the chapel. So I hope you can come next week, and I love